And I'm Richard Moniz at Johnson & Wales and UNCG.
And I'm Heidi Baker here again. I used to be an academic librarian, but I'm currently at Nhat, which is a nonprofit that supports librarians.
Wonderful. Welcome, Heidi.
Thanks.
And I'm not sure if our last person has a mic, but if you do, it's muted. Okay, well, no big deal. No one has to participate. I thought we could start just by sharing how we've been lately, and maybe if you have any mindfulness practices that have been helping you through or that you'd want to talk about. I thought that'd be a good place to start. And then there's Jenny. Hi, Jenny. I don't think she heard me yet. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks. Sorry I'm late.
You're fine. We're just kind of talking about ourselves and self-care and how mindfulness has been lately for us. Mm-hmm. What role is it playing in your life right now, I guess is kind of the question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it my turn?
Sure.
You just got nominated, I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I increased my formal meditation practice this semester because the interest in my college has increased in the past year or so, to the point where there's a couple of colleagues who offer weekly guided sits.
Wow.
And so we had just one session per week going for like the last couple years. And then this year we were able to now we're each doing one. So that just not only engages more people on our campus, but also gives me the chance to practice more often with others, which I find is a big motivator for me.
Where are you at again?
I'm at Minneapolis Community and Technical College.
Are you leading too? Did you get a chance?
Yeah. So that's a new thing too. Like last year I was asked to sub a couple of times and I got super freaked out. Like, I can't do this. So this year I'm leading one every week, and it's been really interesting to see what that feels like and what that looks like. I'm also really excited to share that we received a $25,000 grant to bring mindfulness to our equity and inclusion work at the school. So we received a little bit more of a stage presence as a result of that, and like my partnership with the director of diversity. And he's been such a great sort of ally or advocate of the work, in that he promotes it and he incorporates it in our equity and inclusion work. And so we've had a much, I guess, bigger stage presence as a result of that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and then I practice, every Friday I teach a face-to-face information literacy class, and I still start every class with a meditation, and that's going really well. It's like the more I practice and the more I do it, the more comfortable I get, and I think skilled as well.
Now, when you did the guided meditations, did you come in with a script? Or do you just come with it out of your head, or what do you do?
When I first started, definitely I leaned heavily on a script every time. And actually, this kind of matches my background as a musician. I was trained to read music. I didn't learn how to like hear music, or it wasn't like Suzuki method or anything. So I was like super attached to music and notation. And I remember the first time I like experimented with like improvisation or like just making something up on my own, and I was like, oh, this is kind of scary, but I also kind of like it. And that's kind of what my journey with the meditation has been, or our guiding has been. So I started with a script that I wrote myself, but I modeled it on scripts that I found elsewhere. But I wanted it to sound like me. And then I just started kind of improvising, and now I don't even look at a script, and I'll even come to class and say, I think today we're going to do a walking meditation, or today we're going to do this random exercise or activity that I'm going to incorporate. So it's become like so comfortable for me. And that's awesome to be able to say that, because it took a long time to get there. And I even have examples of times where I was so insecure that I thought I should stop doing it. And it was really the students that kept me going. They would ask for it and almost insist on it.
Oh, that's great.
So.
It's funny you say that. I started with scripting when I did the breathing stuff, and then I was thinking about, I've never done a loving kindness meditation, and I was debating about doing it up in New England this weekend for this conference, but I'm still a little bit intimidated by that because of the constant sort of need to stay somewhat on script with that versus a breathing meditation where you can kind of fluctuate a bit, whether you're going to do, counting breaths or take deeper breaths, or where you're going to focus, those kinds of things versus, I don't know. It just seems like you'd have to be a little more. Have any of you led a loving kindness meditation?
Yes, I have, Richard, and I would say the same. Actually, I don't know how far I can roll with this, but oh shoot, where did it go? Oh, I'm going to show you something. So the last time I led one, this is what I brought in the room with me.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, there you go, right?
It's my Post-it that reminds me of the may yous. This one says, may you be safe, happy, healthy, and live with ease. And I know there's a lot of variations, but I needed that like anchor of a reminder. So otherwise I was worried I was going to just say random things.
I'm like you with music. A guitar players usually play by ear, but I play by reading. So like as soon as you pull the sheet out from in front of me, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Well, I've even been, so when I do my guided meditations, I will sometimes, try to, during the meditation, invite people to become aware again during the meditation. And sometimes I'm just like surprised at the random stuff that comes out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh, this is why I like a script. Because last week I was like, sometimes my thoughts are like hot air balloons, and then I was like, where am I going with this? I haven't thought this through.
Yeah, but
it resonates with someone.
Yeah, in the end, it's more the mood that you're creating, not the precise words, I think. Yeah, it's so great. How many people are in your class?
So when I teach the information literacy class, I have about 20. Our course cap is 27, but I'm teaching the Friday section, and we had a little bit lower number of students enroll. And then when we do the meditations in the room, I've had like anywhere from 2 to 8 people joining me, and 8 is pretty much as the room can hold. If we ended up with that kind of attendance regularly, we'd start wanting to look at increasing the number of offerings further, or maybe looking at using the dance studio, which is a much larger space, and they have meditation things in there as well. But I really like using the library's meditation room because it's cozy and it's the space that I helped create. So
yeah.
The numbers thing is interesting and the type of people that you're leading. One of the things last week I had the Charlotte Mecklenburg Public Library had me come for their staff day, and I led a meditation for 80 librarians and then 80 librarians in 2 separate sessions.
Wow.
And it just seemed like it went really well, even though there were tons of people in the room, and I was kind of anxious about that. I said, we may hear some people shuffling in and out. That's okay. but they were librarians, and I'm so used to doing this with librarians. I've done a little bit with the students, not much, even though that was my first contact, was seeing our faculty at Johnson & Wales doing that with students. And then, so the head of athletics approached me and said, could you do this for our student athletes? So I paired up with the psychology professor here, who's a good friend of mine, and we put together a presentation. And what I did is I used, we've done this Mindfulness for Librarians survey, and I used the survey with the students to find out what they, what their exposure was to different practices and so forth. And one of the things that was really interesting was that 86% of them said that time management was like their biggest stressor.
Oh.
But I got in, so Howard and I went before, they split the two groups up, about 100 in total, but they split them up the way that the kids wanted to be split up. So 75 in one session and then 25 in the other. The second one with 25 went a lot better. The one with 75, we had a lot of issues with. The seating was very close, and they're 18-year-olds, and there was a lot of like, I'm not going to be cool if I actually close my eyes. And there was a lot of giggling and people elbowing each other. And I really did, I think, gave myself a pat on the back to not get totally distracted and stay focused, because the majority of the students that were there were taking it seriously and trying to get something out of it. A lot of them hadn't ever done it before. But, and in the end, I said, those of you maybe thought this was a little bit silly or just couldn't bring yourselves to try, maybe, when the peer pressure is off and you feel like you're not going to look cool in your room, you can try this,
Yeah.
But it's just, so it brought up in my mind for the first time this big difference between the number of people and also in combination with that, the type of people that you're trying to introduce this to or do this with.
Mm-hmm.
Just an observation.
Can I ask you about, you said you're using a survey, is that correct?
Yeah, we did so some colleagues of mine and we did a book, Mindful Librarian, and as part of the book we wanted to get some data, so we sent out a survey and we had 629 librarians answer the survey. It was a preponderance of academic librarians, although we had school and public in there too. And we asked them questions about what they practiced already, how often they practiced, what they would like to learn more about, that kind of thing. And it's data that I've been sharing. I'm going to be sharing again up in New England on Sunday. But yeah, it's interesting. The challenge with it is, and it's funny because if you guys haven't read this yet, by the way, I know I've put this up there on the Facebook thing, but Altered Traits, the book Altered Traits, you just got to read it.
Okay.
It talks about the research on mindfulness, and so I'm about to critique my own thing. But so we don't have. We have self-selected individuals that decided to do this survey. So when we look at 26% of the librarians saying that they spent 2 hours or more on mindfulness activities, 629 people is a good, decent sized sampling of people, but it also, has some self-selectivity to it. What Daniel Goleman and Richie Davidson do in that book is they really tear apart how there's been studies like that aren't as rigorous maybe as having control groups. And then they also look at this other thing, which is really fascinating to me, and I know I'm kind of on a tangent now, but the effects of the different types of meditations are different. So if you want to focus, you don't necessarily want a loving kindness meditation, you want a breathing meditation. If you want to improve your mood, you want to maybe think about doing a loving kindness meditation as opposed to a breathing meditation. And so they show research having actually different impact depending on, and a lot of times we just kind of lump it all together. I mean, I think we know that there's difference, but we kind of make statements like, oh, this will get you. And they really, it's not a good, I don't think it's the best entry level book for mindfulness, but if you've been doing it and you want to like get into the detail more, it was pretty neat that way.
Madeline or Heidi, did either of you want to talk about anything from your recent experience?
Well, I actually have to go, and I'm really sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I have a training, but Hani sent her regrets because she also had to go, and
Oh, okay.
Kristen Mastel will be joining at 3. So in a couple minutes,
Great.
we'll have some replacements. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and thanks for getting this off the ground, Jenny.
Thank you for being here.
All right, bye,
See you Sunday.
everybody. Okay,
Nice to
see ya.
meet you.
Yeah,
Bye,
bye.
Madeline.
This is Heidi. I can share a little bit, and my screen is off because I was outside gardening.
Don't worry.
So you don't want to see me right now? I'm playing in the soil. My personal practice is daily yoga, and I also have mindfulness and yoga nidra practices. I teach lead yoga nidra, actually, because you don't teach it, you lead it. And I also do some days of mindfulness with a partner who is a counselor. And I've been moving toward trying to treat this as a toolbox so that people can experience different things and take what works for them. There tends to be, I think, some anxiety around, am I doing this right? And we don't need any more things to be anxious about. So I've been playing with, we tried some themes, and this year we had a day of mindfulness that worked around impermanence, which can be very difficult for people because sometimes your mind will automatically go to death, which impermanence isn't just about that. But so we tried a variety of things around that, and we would do sitting meditation, but we also created human mandalas. We used the mandala as the theme for that day, and at one point we sent everyone out to just forage and gather things from the grounds, whether they were leaves, flower petals, rocks, twigs, whatever they came across, and they incorporated a silent walking meditation into that. And then when they came back, we had a place on the floor where everyone brought their offerings and created a mandala together, and then that became the centerpiece for meditation in the afternoon. So I've just been experimenting with some different things like that and bringing those into the mindfulness practices. And I totally understand what Jenny was talking about with the script, because I was also heavily scripted initially, really afraid to deviate from the script. And we were doing a session with police who were, can be they were kind of skeptical. They were open to this, but with reservation. And that happened to be the day that there was a page missing from my script.
Yeah.
Well, I had to wing it, and lo and behold, it worked out. You can dig deep and find what you need there. We surprise ourselves, so it worked out okay. But there was definitely a momentary panic.
And I guess for me, I've been having my own mindfulness practice maybe 2 or 3 years now. And this summer, my father passed away, and I was there for like the last week of hospice and everything like that. And I saw a real difference in how I was able to handle emotions and everything. And so that was amazingly helpful to me. And I kind of feel like I'm all in, if that makes sense. I signed up finally for an MBSR class because it's part of the Koru pre-certification thing, if you've heard of that. I wanted to be involved with that as our campus also moves kind of more into this. But there wasn't one.
What week are you in that?
I think this is week 4.
Okay.
Yeah, but like there isn't one in my town. A lot of places have it in their town, and I was thinking about, I wanted to find a partner if I was going to do it online. I couldn't find anyone to do it with me because you have to kind of commit to a pretty extensive daily practice. And if you don't have it already, it can be a big commitment for people. So I finally just said, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to drive to Asheville once a week. So that's what I've been doing. And I'm glad that I did. I'm glad I finally did that. So it's interesting. They start MBSR, I don't even know if I know what that stands for. Mindfulness-based stress reduction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they start by focusing on the body. So it's not even really focusing on the breath at the beginning. It's body scans, and then they add in breathing meditation, and then they've added in some gentle yoga so far. So I think we're headed toward emotion from what I can tell. But it's very interesting to have like a very methodical, consecutive class for that. So
I did like a watered down version that they did. They did one during the day, but it was only for like an hour and a half instead of like 3 hours. And it was weird because it was just they just asked for donations for each one instead of charging up front for it. My wife's doing the one that you're doing right now, and she's about in week 4 too. But it seems like Asheville would be a better place to go than Asheville's they've got some they have a really neat the two of the faculty that really got me into this years back have been to the retreat that they have at UNC Asheville, and
I
that's
try to go to that every year. Yeah, it's a really good one. They have such a strong community at that campus that they meet once a week. And then they have the retreat that's open to other people too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking to try to sell my boss on it, but he's very concrete. There's no like this the Lord Library or whatever, and I don't know. I think he would have been. It's funny because he said he at one point he called it like a mumbo jumbo or something like that. So I'm like, I'm not going to ask him about going there.
Yeah, it's very academic though. The presentations are very academic.
Right. I bet.
So I thought maybe we could have another brief pause because we're trying to give ourselves some rest and focus. I have a little poem to read, if that's okay. I'm going to share my screen again. This is my eclipse picture, by the way. It's a short one. You see, I want a lot. Perhaps I want everything. The darkness that comes with every infinite fall, and the shivering blaze of every step up. So many live on and want nothing, and are raised to the rank of prince by the slippery ease of their light judgments. But what you love to see are faces that do work and feel thirst. You love most of all those who need you, as they need a crowbar or a hoe. You have not grown old, and it is not too late to dive into your increasing depths, where life calmly gives out its own secret. And that's from Rilke. It's weird to do breaks over the internet, isn't it? Like, we could do it for longer, but then I hadn't muted everyone, and that's something for you future conveners to learn. Actually, I wanted to make sure I mentioned the upcoming sessions. On November 15th at 2 o'clock with Johnny Craig, on December 27th at 12:30 with Laura Lynn Collar, and January 22nd at 2 o'clock with Heidi, as you are. This Heidi that's here. So, and those are all going to look different based on whoever's leading them. I know in the past we had things a little bit more structured than what today is, but that was kind of intentional for today.
Will the future meetings be taking place on different platforms, or will they all be using Zoom as well?
You know, I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I think Jenny and Madeline, I think when we talked about that, we were sort of thinking maybe at one point that it could be up to the person. Although we found Zoom to be easy to use, but
yeah. It is, and there's several of us that have licenses where we can easily set up meetings, but I think we're also hoping that people can take it and run with it, like in the future. Like, we don't want it to just be us controlling everything, so we're still trying to find the best way to get people to take it on without leaving them feeling like they don't have back, like a support. So.
And the group's getting, we're almost at 500 now. It's funny because I'm going to speak in New England on Sunday, and so I printed like hundreds of handouts of like some mindful resources, and one of the things I printed was the Facebook group, and I said, and I wrote underneath, we now have more than 400 members, and by the time I hand it out, we're going to have 500 members.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think we're seeing a lot of increased interest. So that's really good.
Well, and I think what Heidi said earlier about, just people taking from this what they can. And, that was one of the things I stressed with the students the other day when I talked to them too, was, maybe one thing works for you and another doesn't, or maybe when we actually coupled mindfulness with the time management, since they said that was their big stressor, was balancing their time. And, so the way I thought of it is, if they get even just one or two things, even if it's mindfulness or paying attention to how they spend their time, which relates. I mean, we talked about how so many of us spend time guilty on like Facebook and Netflix and all this stuff, and so the point was, Howard actually addressed that with them. He co-presented with me and was saying how, maybe they could cut some of those things out for things that are more important, but just little things like that, like even, or even just taking a few breaths. And the other thing that I tried to drive home to them too, and this comes from that Altered Traits book, is don't try to do, even though they say, okay, so you can alter your actual traits if you spend 2 hours a day every day for 10 years. Well, if you can't spend, it's better that if you can spend 5 minutes, spend 5 minutes. Don't try to do it for an hour, get frustrated because you can't maintain an hour and just never do it again. Do it for the time that you can do it. But like little things like that, that's what I think is helpful. And I think that's what this group's been good with so far too, is just kind of discussions about little things here and there. And then even this discussion about scripting, non-scripting, stuff like that. I mean, where else are we going to go to, have discussions like this?
Yeah, and I'd actually like to hear more about that. Can I just Google guided meditation script?
Probably.
I haven't.
Well, that might be the thing. Intersect with other groups at some point,
Yeah.
That do this.
Well, because I was thinking, like my state chapter doesn't have anything about mindfulness. At least it hasn't in the years I've been involved, and I'm probably the person that knows about it. I'm thinking, well, what could I do? And I'm sure guided meditation would be a good part of that. But if I haven't done it, I don't think I'd want to start there.
Well, I bet if you did Google, you would get some scripts. And then I just happened to kind of pull from different books that I've had over the years. Like I'll just grab from here and there things that resonate with me. I also, like what you did with the poem, I'll look for readings. Actually, I just grabbed, because I happened to grab it earlier, I have it still next to me. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book called Is Nothing Something? And the subtitle is Kids' Questions and Zen Answers About Life, Death, Family, Friendship, and Everything in Between. But what I found is that there's a couple of his answers that are perfect for readings during guided meditations. So really, simple and short responses to questions like, what is mindfulness? Or how can I remain calm when I see so many bad things in the world? So these are questions that children wrote. So they're really simple, but that's what we're all wondering too. Right? And So another thing that I've been working with, because of the increased partnering with equity and inclusion, I've been working more closely with looking at mindfulness and equity, mindfulness and trauma, and kind of learning about how certain populations, especially those like that are served at my institution, may be very vulnerable if left without a script or without guidance. So to ask my students to just sit in silence for 5 minutes could be trauma triggering or trauma inducing for some of them.
Wow.
And so trying to learn about that as I continue to, like, so that I don't get like all, I'm confident, I've got this, I know how to do this now, I've done it for a while. I keep trying to push myself to be more compassionate and learn more about my own privileges and my own biases as I come to this work. And so there's a great article that just came out in the publication called Teaching Tolerance, which is written by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And the title is something to do with being mindful about equity or something like that, or mindfulness and equity. And it basically critiques mindfulness in the K through 12 system for being too much too soon. So, it became like the science came out, the practices started showing up, and then pretty soon all the schools are like, we got to have this. And the criticism is that the teachers are not adequately practicing or prepared to lead the mindfulness that they're being called to do by their administration. And that can be really challenging for students who maybe have trauma or have or need support, and the facilitators or the teachers aren't really ready for that. And also another critique was that, and this is one I really care about, that if you're teaching students who are being oppressed or who are marginalized to just cope and deal with their emotions, that doesn't actually get at the injustices. It teaches them, how to, have emotional intelligence around struggles in their life, but it doesn't get at the struggles. And so it can be, I don't know, just I'm not wording this very well, but it can be a little bit of a slippery slope as far as like saying, we're just going to teach you how to deal with all the injustices and not actually deal with the injustices themselves. So,
right.
I saw that too.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
Go ahead, Heidi.
No, I was just going to say that can be re-traumatizing because you're telling them to basically, just stuff it down, and we're going to gloss this over with these practices. So a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I was concerned about that. Even that was one of my skepticisms when I first got into this. And it's even a challenge that I think I have mentally, even though we're sitting here talking about how it can be, you can be mindful and still be like, how do you be a resistor and still be mindful, and how do you, and I incorporated one quote from How to Live a Good Life, which is a really fantastic book. If you haven't looked at that yet, it's got mindfulness, all kinds of cool stuff in it. But there's one quote in it that I pulled that talks about, how do we remain compassionate and mindful in a world where there's so many bad things happening. I mean, of course, there were always bad things happening, but it seems like it's just we're just pummeled with it lately. It feels like.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, I feel like there's a part of me that I keep arguing. People keep telling me that I need to be more mindful in the sense of just backing off the news here and there. But I just feel like there's this part of me that feels like I'm giving up on people. Like, oh God. I don't want to, especially sort of as a white straight male, like I'm in this group that's sort of like privileged, and so if I just sit there and say, well, okay, I'm just gonna do my own thing and I'm not gonna be stressed about it, that seems like just kind of writing off. I don't know. So I struggle with that in terms of how to be and I'm not really good about the balance yet. I'm just still trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're not going to go see him, Jenny?
Oh, I had emailed him that Trump is here in my town today.
Oh my God.
Just
Wow.
thinking about the things like resistance and protest, but can you do that and be mindful? I have a hard time just not going directly to anger and all that stuff. So then I'm like, well, would it be helpful or harmful? It's a hard decision to make, I think.
Well, and when is anger?
I don't want to be silent, but
right. And when is anger mindful? That's a question that I've been sort of struggling with lately, because and reading the stuff about emotional intelligence and just, you know, I mean, how could we not be angry at some of the, you know what I mean? So.
And then how far does compassion go? I mean, because I do think that developing compassion is really important. And I know the loving kindness meditation can really help with that. But
well, see, and the flip side of this was when I talked to the public librarians on, it was on Columbus Day, I did these 2 sessions with them, and I did them with Martin House, who's at CPCC. You've met Martin through here before, and his dissertation he's looking at is burnout among librarians, and one of the things he talks about is, and it's a big factor, is this emotional exhaustion with trying to help people all the time. So how do you know what I'm saying? This adds another layer to that. But
well, that's
go ahead,
Heidi.
Related to that question that you're asking, I've been wrestling with that too, and I just heard a really beautiful interview with Ruby Sales that Krista Tippett did. And it wasn't about mindfulness specifically, but Ruby Sales is a theologian, and she talks a lot about community and faith, and specifically marginalized people in community. And she does talk about these things, and I can't do it justice, but I would encourage you to, if you have time, to check that out. That recording is on Krista Tippett's website.
how do you spell Krista Tippett? You said?
Yeah, Krista Tippett. It's called On Being. And the interview was with Ruby Sales, and her last name is Sales.
Thank you for that tip. I have found some real gems on her interviews before. And she actually has her studios right in my backyard.
Oh my goodness, lucky you.
I know, actually the library, we have a relationship with her company, and we are the fortunate recipients of their of books, and mostly books, materials that are sent to her company.
Nice.
So we get a lot of books on spirituality and philosophy.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. But thank you for that. I look forward to looking that up. This is a great meetup in terms of just getting ideas and books and resources and whatnot.
What was the name of the children's book again?
Sure. Actually, and if you want to hear, I'm going to read. It's called Is Nothing Something?
Thank you.
And I'll just read to you because this fits with our theme. How can I remain calm when I see so many bad things in the world? And so the answer is, and this is Thich Nhat Hanh's response, whenever I see violence or cruelty, it still makes me angry. We all get angry sometimes, but we can learn to take care of our anger. If we look closely, we can notice that people who are cruel have a lot of suffering inside. When we see this, we can be compassionate and help the situation by creating peace, even if what is happening around us is not very peaceful. We can use our breath and our mindfulness to transform the energy of anger into the energy of compassion. When we have the energy of compassion, we can do a lot of things to help people suffer less.
Perfect.
That's amazing.
Kristen, hi.
Hi, Kristen. We've just been...
Hi. Sorry, I don't know how to use Zoom very well.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. We've just really been talking about self-care and our own practices, and it's just kind of been an open conversation. So if there's anything you want to share before we end, I know you haven't heard the rest of it, but that's okay.
Yeah, what's going on with you with the mindful practice? Maybe just tell us. You had it off mute, but now it's back on.
Oh, she said she's having audio issues, but she does yoga in the morning. Great. Well, I'm glad you could join us. And in that Mindfulness for Librarians Facebook group, there is a list of the upcoming meetings if you guys want to mark them on your calendar. And if you want to consider hosting or leading a day in the spring, I know that there will be a call for that. So that's just something to keep in mind. And there's more that this group can do. We're open to any ideas. I mean, I think they'll just come up naturally, but I do feel like some of our meetups have been easier for academic librarians to attend because we have them during the day, and I'm aware of that, and I'm aware that some of our topics tend to veer more into pedagogy and stuff like that. I think that's natural, but I'm also hoping that we can be more broad at times and maybe inclusive by having it, I don't know, maybe at night or something like that. It's just something that we haven't, fully, I don't think we've tapped into our whole potential. We're still growing and everything. Oh, and Kristen added, and deep breathing over lunch. And Weight Watchers has a mindfulness approach to looking at our reaction and actions around food. Wow, that's new. Interesting.
Well, the December 27th date's going to be interesting because that's a date that all of us are usually missing, but I got it on my calendar. I'm going to try to connect from home.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. Anyway, does anyone have any last thoughts? I want to make sure that people are free by 3:30, so I was thinking 3:20.
Thank you, everybody, for the ideas and stuff. This was cool.
Yeah, it was really helpful.
It's been a good
Thanks,
conversation.
Jenny, for putting it together.
Oh, sure. Well, have a great day, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, Jenny.